Hello and welcome back to the second part of Moving Towards Green Technology. I'm Dr. Rachna Agarwal, Assistant Professor in School of Vocational Education and Training, Indira Gandhi National Open University. And the session which I am taking today is a part of sustainability science. We have already discussed in our first part what is technology, what are the benefits and the pros and the cons of technology. We have also seen what are the different types of technology and the components of technology. Now we will take the second part of the moving towards green technology and we will discuss the different types of technologies available with us and the constraints of technology. So let us begin. First of all, there are various kinds of technologies. To start with, first class of technologies are non-mineral based and mineral based technologies. Non-mineral based technologies, as the name suggests, are the technologies which utilize materials and energy of biological origin. And these technologies you are dependent on the renewable or the perpetual energies. We all know renewable energy systems which are present naturally are solar, wind, geothermal energies and renewable energies. So examples of these non-mineral based technologies which are utilizing raw materials and energies of renewable nature are organic farming, production of biofuels, enzymatic pathways of processing, microbial processing, bioremediation, biological wastewater treatment and a variety of renewable energy technologies which are tidal, solar, geothermal and wind based energy technologies. Now there is a lot of advantages that these technologies which are based on non-mineral systems provide. What are these advantages? Let us see. First of all, the products, the byproducts and the wastes of these technologies are mostly biodegradable. That is, they do not burden our earth and our systems with huge amount of waste which later on can cause disposal problem. Secondly, these technologies are bio-based and almost carbon neutral. That is, the carbon dioxide generation from processing to environment is negated by the regeneration of the biomass itself. What it means? It has very less carbon footprints and since it is totally dependent on the natural resources, it leaves very less carbon burden on the environment. Thirdly, the environmental footprints as a whole are relatively less or almost negligible. So, the non-mineral based technologies have a huge amount of advantages to be utilized or tapped by human beings. Second is the mineral based technologies. These technologies which are based on minerals, they utilize mostly non-renewable sources which are mineral sources like coal, oil, crude oil, nuclear energies, and such mineral based technology systems are posing a burden mostly when they are either tapped from the environment or when they are being utilized. Example of these mineral based technologies are like fertilizer based agriculture, petrofuel, nuclear power setups and coal based power plants. What are the features of these mineral based technologies? Let us see. These mineral based technologies, they give out the products, the byproducts and waste. These are causing a lot of problem in the environment because they are non biodegradable in many occasions. And in some cases, it takes a long period of time for the waste to be degraded. So, they cause a huge burden on the earth, on the environment. Then the environmental and the ecological footprints of processing of mineral resources are very high. Therefore, non-mineral based technology should be applied wherever possible and to whatever extent possible if we want to practice sustainable technology systems. Next category of technologies are automation versus labor intensive technology. Now let us see what are these automation and labor intensive technologies. Automation or mechanized technology as we call is advisable where we require precision like a robotic arm and where there is need of exact and proper timing or any other such parameters where the primary requirements are of precision. For example, a computer based solar receiver or short circuits, or where you want some precision say for disposing of or diffusing a nuclear bomb or an atomic bomb where there are dangers to the human being. And in this automation or mechanized technology, these are most appropriate where there is high risk to the human body. For example, there is high levels of sound energy, heat is there which is totally unacceptable for any human being to invade in such environments, and also where there is high radioactive and ionizing waves. So, in such cases we prefer automation or mechanized technologies. Thirdly, these automation technologies are helpful where the physical risk is high and there is limitation of space. However, when a job can be performed by labor and there is availability of plenty of man force or the labor force, then we should always opt for labor intensive technology. This would ensure a better distribution of economic benefits to the society. When you employ a labor, you facilitate an entire family to perpetuate. So, this is a condition where if automation or mechanized technology is not required or can be taken care of by a labor intensive technology, then we should always opt for a labor intensive technology. Now, the next category of technology is centralized versus decentralized technology. What is a centralized system of technology? Centralized system is a setup or a setup for a huge amount of which caters to a huge population. So, a decentralized technology, I will give an example, actually is a technology which caters to huge setups, while a decentralized technology system is for smaller setups such as a small household or a block or a small community setup. Example of a decentralized technology is a rainwater harvesting system, which we all know is nowadays even in some of the residential colonies are getting together and they are using a rainwater tapping or rainwater harvesting system. So, here it is this example is for a decentralized technology, and here it is at the level of few households, and you can even have it for your official building, you can have it for your hostels, a school or college. So, it is a small scale technology. So, it contributes towards tapping of the natural resource, which is rainwater. So, it is environment friendly. And while nuclear power plants, if we go for, or a sewage water system, it is an example of a centralized technology which is for a higher number of population or for a huge community and at a higher and a broader scale. So, this is the difference between centralized and decentralized technologies. Next, we have a category of technologies which we can distinguish as individual versus collective technologies. What is this type of technology? Individualistic technology system. Here, the inputs and the benefits are governed by an individual, and there is no concern or very less concern for the society. For example, we as an individual, for our household, we can have a groundwater pumping system, and we can own it privately, but we are tapping a natural resource which is a common resource for everybody. Okay, but here the benefit is for a individual, so we would call it as a individual technology. Individualistic technology example is groundwater pumping system for a particular household, for a particular agricultural activity, or for a particular industry. Then we also have vehicles with us which also we are using for our own benefit or our own purpose. So, this is also using a car is privately owned is an example of an individualistic technology. Contrary to the individualistic technology, we have collective technologies. These technologies are for the entire community. That is why they are called collective technologies. For example, we have community pond, a community biogas plant, a check dam, or a community rainwater harvesting system, which is of a larger scale. Okay. So, a community based small scale cottage industry or small cooperatives or a public transport system, these are all examples of collective technologies. Here, the efforts, the costs, labor and benefits are borne by all individuals of the community, which we call it is a public property, and all the community benefits from it. So, such technologies are more useful for the community. This system brings in and maintains social bondage. There is a community feeling amongst each other, and it helps in social integrity and brings about social harmony amongst the individuals of the society. So, collective technologies are having a positive approach towards socially integrating the community. Next category of technologies are single purpose versus multi-purpose technologies. What is a single purpose technology? Single purpose technology are meant for performing a single job at a time, and it is specified to do that particular task. For example, a bus is meant for passenger transport only, while a truck is meant for goods and material transport. So, we have a fixed purpose for a bus and a fixed purpose for a truck. So, this is an example of a single purpose technology. Contrary to this, we have multi-purpose technology. In this system, there is an example, like we say sometimes we can do multitasking or we do multitasking, and here the technology or the provider is performing more than one task. It is performing more than one task, and it is optimizing the overall material consumption. So, in say for example, we have a tractor which can be used for human transportation. It can also be used for transporting the agricultural produce. It can carry your vehicles also, and it is also used for plowing your fields. So, a tractor is doing 4 kinds of jobs, so it is multitasking. So, from one tractor you are extracting different kind of purposes or jobs. So, here a tractor is an example of multi-purpose technology. Similarly, we have advanced commercial laser color printers which can do the job of printing. They can also do the job of photocopying, and they can also be used as a fax machine, as a scanner. So, from one technology you are taking 3-4 jobs. So, such technologies should be preferred over the single use technologies, as they are more environment friendly and optimal to use. Now, let us see how this technological development has affected or impacted the environment. Every technology creates some disturbance in the natural resources, and by way of its own existence or its own development, like for example, right from processing of raw materials and generation of the finished products, the whole cycle produces some byproducts, waste and some pollution. So, each wave of technology generates a new set of wastes, which may be toxic waste, radioactive waste, electronic waste, or they may be biodegradable waste, which is always preferred for sustainable technological developments. Now, the environmental effects of technology usually are depletion of non-renewable natural resources such as mineral, oils, fuels and ores, and potentially renewable resources also like biomass. And some of the environmental compartments are also depleted or they are affected, such as air, water and soil. Environmental effects of technology, as we all know, one of the very most popular and talked about effect is the global warming. Then it has also led to the natural habitat destruction. It has led to loss of biodiversity, pollution induced health problems and loss of coastal wetlands. So, these are some of the detrimental environmental effects of technology. But we have another class of technology which is called appropriate technology. Let us see what is this appropriate technology. Appropriate technology takes into account the environmental, social, political, cultural, ethical, and economic considerations. It is very difficult to have a technology which can cater to all these parameters: environmental, social, political, cultural, and ethical. And it is a technology which gives economic benefits to the entire community region for which it is being developed. So, what are these? These are massive technologies. For example, setting up of a network of tubes or metro which benefits the entire community of that particular region is an example of appropriate technology. And some general characteristics of appropriate technology are that it maximizes the dependency on local materials, and there is minimum requirement of natural resources. It also appreciates local skills and local and labor human resource, and it requires low capital costs. It is affordable by a community or individuals, and it promotes decentralization. So, this appropriate technology actually brings people together to work collectively, and it can be understood or controlled by local people and maintained using local skills or simple machine tools. Appropriate technology is flexible in design or concept and expandable and adaptable to changing circumstances and requirements. It is multi-purpose in utility, it is durable, and it is viable in long term. This appropriate technology, as we say, it has long term benefits. It is culturally acceptable, and there is no involvement of any patents, royalties, consulting fees, or import duties. Such appropriate technologies should be promoted by the government, subsidized, and tax free. Such technologies involve fewer resources and are easy to maintain and have minimal impact on the environment. So, such technologies are always sought for and they should be promoted. Now, let us see what are the constraints in adopting sustainable technology. There are problems in adopting sustainable technologies, and they are mainly technical and political. Some major constraints which are there in adopting sustainable technology which have been identified are: there is lack of innovation or the time which is required to develop an appropriate technology. So, we are always in a hurry and we do not give adequate time for new innovations. Then there are challenges also which are involved either in the software or the hardware development which have to be overcome. Then there are some organizational complexities in delivery system. It is not easy to deliver the benefits or the uses of such appropriate technologies. And there is a lack of financial incentives, especially at the community level, because it is going to benefit the entire community. So the corpus has to be huge, and for that you require massive funds. Then there are also some managerial issues, especially in labor intensive projects. Who will pay the labor? Who will take care of their families, their medical benefits, and all these things? These are the managerial issues which have to be catered to. Then there are certain legal structures which prevent the development of such technologies, and some cultural knowledge of some cultural backgrounds is also important before you set up this or develop this particular technology in any particular region or area, so as not to hurt the sentiments of any societal community. Then there are some other issues like cost effectiveness. The technology has to be cost effective. There should be quality control, appropriate quality control for the technology. Then marketing, there has to be a good marketing strategies for promotion of these technologies, and there has to be good organizational planning. So these all constraints have to be overcome when we think of launching any sustainable technologies. Sustainable technologies have to be economically competitive. They have to be socially acceptable and technically viable than the other large scale modern technologies. For example, in India, we have small scale intensive labor sugar mills, and they work as efficiently and they are as successful as the large scale capital intensive mills of the modern times. If you go to any rural area where you have agriculture fields, and you will find that especially in the winter season, many farmers are growing their own sugarcane, and they have a small machine in which they will be extracting the juice of the sugarcane, and they would be boiling and producing jaggery. So what is this? This is an example of a small scale labor intensive technology. Now let us conclude and see what is the latest researches which are happening around us. So I have given you a list of some additional references or researches, and some of this, one or two I will take up here. One organization is Mumbai based, which is STEPS. It specializes in products that convert waste material to useful products, and it provides solution for the treatment of soil, water and air. So you can just see the link which is provided in the PPT, and you can just browse it, and you will find people who are seriously working towards utilizing this for remediation of the waste material and preserving the natural resources. Then we have another reference, which is SPARS or Recycling Private Limited, which is recycling our electronic waste, metal scrap and battery scrap, and it is preventing the environmental degradation by recycling and reusing these such waste. So here's I have mentioned a few more references. You can just browse through. There are some also websites where you will find that sustainable technologies are being used to build plastic waste to make fuel from the plastic waste. So there are a lot of organizations who are already working towards preserving our planet Earth and practicing sustainable technology. So thank you very much, and I really enjoyed the session. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Thank you.